Welcome to My Morning Cup, a podcast produced by Costa Media Advisors and brought to you by the generous support of the Tennessee Valley Authority. To learn more about TVA's impact on our community, follow TVA on Instagram at TVA and on Twitter X at TVA News. My Morning Cup, where we have interesting conversations with genuine people. I'm Mike Costa, your host. My guest this week is Lucy Rymer. Lucy is the executive director of Cleveland's Museum and Culture Center at 5 Points. Lucy, before we delve into Cleveland's unique history and culture, let me ask, what's in your morning cup?
Just black coffee.
Just black?
Just black.
High-octane caffeinated?
Yes.
You like a dark roast or a breakfast roast?
I like a dark roast.
Yeah.
From my Nespresso.
Oh, yeah. I've got an espresso.
We work Keurig people because we've got 2 kids at home, so we have to do it's quick and easy.
Ding, ding.
And that Nespresso kind of takes you up to the next level, you know? It's like bougie coffee, but it's convenient.
Yep.
I love it.
And you know what I found since we've had it a little more than a year now? I drink less coffee.
Yes.
You know, a Keurig, I was going one after another just to get that fulfillment. And even when we were doing pots, I would drink too much. But the Nespresso, I drink 1 or 2, and I'm good.
Yeah, it's very rich.
Yeah.
I don't think it burns the fat off, is what somebody told me.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Well, it's got all that foam on top. Yeah.
Yeah. So it sticks to your bones a little bit better. But it certainly does. Like I can do like 1 cup, maybe 2, if it's been a rough night or something. Yeah.
Well, see, I do decaf.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I just like the flavor. I used to drink caffeinated coffee, but I'm too old now.
Oh, no. I still need the caffeine.
Yeah. Well, I didn't say I didn't need the caffeine.
Yeah.
I just do what my doctor told me.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Really appreciate you coming down from Cleveland. And I really want to talk to you a lot about Cleveland, but before we get there, I want to start where you started, which is where? Lawrenceburg?
Lawrenceburg, Tennessee.
And where is that Middle Tennessee?
It is technically, Middle Tennessee. It's about an hour and a half south of Nashville, about 45 minutes north of Florence, Alabama.
Oh, yeah.
On the Tennessee-Alabama line.
Yeah, Florence is a great town, too.
Yeah, it is. It is. That's, of course, Lawrenceburg didn't have a whole lot in it when I was growing up. So if you wanted to go to the mall or do anything, you kind of had to go to Florence.
Oh, did you really? So Florence is closer than Nashville to Lawrenceburg?
Yes.
I didn't realize that. So is that that's near Columbia then, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. Mule Day.
Mule Day, which I've never been to, surprisingly. Mm-mm.
How old were you before you moved to Franklin?
We moved to Franklin when I was a freshman in high school. Then. And so both my parents worked for Murray Incorporated that made lawnmowers and bicycles.
Oh, yeah.
And they had a corporate office in Brentwood, and they had their manufacturing plant in Lawrenceburg, which was the major employer there. So there were times that my, parents would commute back and forth. There was times that we were just in Lawrenceburg, but eventually, by the time we were freshmen in high school, they were both working in that corporate office in Brentwood. So we moved there, and it was great. Talk about a change, going from somewhere that you had limited access to a lot of experiences to where literally like the world was at your fingertips. So
and Franklin was growing at that time, wasn't it?
It was growing a lot, and we loved growing up in Franklin. Of course, it's huge now, almost unrecognizable, but we spent a lot of time downtown Franklin.
Yeah.
They had that little Franklin Cinemas there, which, they showed all the indie films and the Rocky Horror Picture Show every Friday at midnight. And that was a cool thing to do in high school, was to go down there and walk around and take part in all of that.
I got to tell you a real quick story about the Rocky Horror Picture Show. We went up to the game this past weekend, and my godson lives in Memphis, and he's 30 now or something like that. And a friend talked him into going to the Rocky Horror Picture Show. He said, I thought it was going to be a horror movie. I had no idea what was going on.
It's a little wild.
He said, that was weird.
It was weird. Yeah. I could see that be shocking if you didn't know what you were getting into.
He's going to a midnight show thinking he's going to a horror movie, and he ends up at the Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Oh, man. He really went for it, didn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. So you have any siblings?
I do. I have a twin sister, actually.
Yeah?
And we don't look anything alike, We are very different. She's taller than me. She's got blonde hair. Our eyes are different colors. Yeah. So it's funny. We were the first set of twins that were born in Lawrenceburg in like years and years and years and years. So it was like we were almost like a sideshow act. You know, It was like the twins. Everybody knew us everywhere we went. Look, it's the twins. We're like, we don't even look alike. But yeah.
Where's your sister live now?
She's in Greensboro, North Carolina.
Oh, another nice place. So you moved to Franklin. Talk a little bit about growing up in Franklin, particularly like your high school years and what you did for fun and high school type jobs.
Sure. So in Franklin, I got really involved with community theater.
Oh, really?
That was what I spent the vast majority of my time doing. Of course, in Lawrenceburg, there was a little community theater there, but I took a lot of tap dance lessons, sang in the church choir. You know, it was a small rural community. Mm-hmm. And when we moved to Franklin, there were just so many more opportunities to get involved for young people in arts experiences of that sort. Started out just doing, plays at school. Like I did Our Town. I was Emily in Our Town. And then there was this little...
Emily dies, right?
Yes.
Oh, gosh.
She does. And then you have that awful speech at the end, and you're a ghost. And, it was fun. I liked it. But then there was a little community theater called Pool Type Players. It was in a little church in downtown Franklin, just seated like maybe 100 people, a little black box theater. And they did all kinds of musicals. We did My Fair Lady and Fiddler on the Roof. I was in The Crucible, which is not a musical, but they had like a children's theater that did Babes in Toyland. I was in that. But there was never a time, probably my second half of my sophomore, junior, freshman year, that I was not doing some sort of play. I really thought that's what I wanted to do when I grew up. But then I changed my mind. So.
Well, what was your favorite role?
Oh, goodness. I mean, it probably had to be Emily.
Yeah.
In Our Town. Yeah. And, when I was in high school, when I was in college, I was Marcus in Titus Andronicus, which was a stretch, but I actually liked that one too, just because it was something so different and something very unexpected for me to play. One, it's a man's role, and I'd never done Shakespeare before. And, so it was one of those things like, are you sure you're going to cast her as that? I kind of got it by accident, which is seemingly what happens a lot in my life. I get things by accident. And
that's true for a lot of people. You kind of stumble onto things.
Yeah, you kind of stumble onto things. But the person that was supposed to play it had dropped out of this. It was like just a director's senior project. And I knew the guy, and he said, hey, do you want to do it? And I was like, well, sure, why not? I mean, what have I got to lose? So
good answer.
Yeah.
Yeah, people don't say yes enough because you look what it brought you. You still remember it.
Yeah, I do. I still remember it. And I just think it goes to show you that, you can do hard things.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. So in high school, you're doing plays. What else are you doing?
I worked a lot.
Yeah.
I've always been a worker. I turned 16. I wanted my car, and then I wanted a job. I don't know why. I thought it was such a cool thing to go and start working immediately, but I always wanted to work. And so I got a job at Eckerd Drugs, because this is why every 16-year-old girl gets a job at a place. That's where supposedly the cute boys worked. And
but I never had a job at Eckerd Drugs. What are you saying?
Well, I made a mistake because there was more than one Eckerd Drug in Franklin, Tennessee. And so I applied at the wrong location.
You went to the Ugly Boy branch.
I went to the Ugly Boy branch of Eckerd Drug. But after that, I moved on. I worked a little bit in, Eddie Bauer. Yeah. I managed a wings to go restaurant. My little high school sweetheart at the time, our senior year of summer before moving to college, there was a neighbor of ours who had opened up a hot wing restaurant, and he needed some help. And somehow we ended up being the people that were actually in charge of it almost immediately. And it just convinced me that food service was never going to be my thing. That smell of the grease.
Yeah, particularly if you're frying stuff all the time, it permeates your skin.
It does. I mean, and I remember this one night, we were cleaning out the fryers, and somehow he dumped it, and all that oil went everywhere. I mean, yeah.
That's not fun.
Not fun.
Not fun at all.
Not fun. And that was the last time I worked in a chicken restaurant.
So you're doing theater, you're in high school, and you're getting part-time jobs because particularly at that age, you want your independence, you want your own money. How is theater mixing with that work atmosphere, or not atmosphere, the desire to work? Are you still able to do theater? Did it change your thinking and not want to do it anymore?
Yes and no. I mean, I don't remember it interfering. I think, you always find a way to do what you want to do. I think there was certainly some times when I got very involved that maybe that's when you leave one job and then pick up another one later on, which isn't it great to be able to do that in high school?
Yep.
And what I always kind of knew by the time I was getting to my senior year of high school was that I wasn't quite sure I wanted to be on the stage. That practical piece of my brain that said, you need a reliable way to make money was always there. And I can remember my high school guidance counselors telling me, they were like, what do you want to go do when you go to school? I was like, honestly, I really don't know. They're like, well, you're going to do theater because that's what you're good at. And I was like, but I don't know that I want to. I mean, that's just kind of like, to me, it was just a talent. It was something I was having fun with. It was a great hobby. It kept me real busy. I met a lot of people, got to know a lot of people, but it wasn't what I ever felt like was really going to be the way that I could sustain a lifestyle that I wanted. Yeah.
It's interesting you say that because, I'm a bit older than you, but I remember my dad kind of looking at some of the things I was doing and going, you can't make a living doing that. And that there's something in the back of your mind that says, okay, I've got to find, lack of a better term, a real job.
A real job.
Yeah.
Something stable.
Yeah. Being on the stage or being on the radio or doing, that's too talent-based, I guess.
Yeah. And I mean, and I knew people that were very talented and did want to go on to do that and be professional actors. And I will tell you, there was like a level of passion and commitment that I just didn't have to.
Yeah.
And you see it. And I think it's important to be able to recognize, like, hey, that they care about this a lot more than I do. I was like, it got to be, I went to Florida State my freshman year, and all of my friends, they were going off to camps and different, theater festivals where they would work for nothing all summer long. And I was like, no, I want to go home and see my family.
Yeah.
I want to go back to at the time I had gotten a job as a bank teller at Union Planners. Like I want to go back to my stable job and see my mom and dad and sleep in my own bed. And
well, there is a sacrifice that comes with that, it's not just financial. It is being able to see the ones you love on a regular basis.
Yeah.
I want to go back to one thing when you're in high school. I've heard of DECA for years.
Yeah.
I have never known that DECA stands for the Distributive Education Clubs of America.
I'm going to be honest. When I put that there on the questionnaire, I was like, I don't remember what this means either. And I had to look it up again.
I did too. Well, talk about the DECA state tournament, because I don't know enough about it other than seeing DECA.
Yeah, it was, I think, my senior year. I was in a marketing class, and our teacher just recommended, like, hey, does anybody want to do this thing? So a friend of mine, I think you had to create a business plan. I can't even remember what we were talking about. And then you had to go and present it. And we won our little regional, and then we went on to state, and we ended up winning that as well. And it was really more like, it's a leadership and marketing club. It's for people that are wanting to go into business. And for me, it was good because I enjoyed being in front of people and talking to people and making presentations. It's always something I felt comfortable with. What I did not realize was when we got to that state tournament, and we were one of the final two. We almost went, well, we did win that, and we could have gone on. The next level of the competition was on the same day as our senior prom. And I was like all in. I was like, I'll just skip senior prom. What a crazy thing. I wanted to win this competition. And my partner was like, I'm going to senior prom. And so we had this massive fight right before that final presentation. And she got in there and she threw the whole thing, answered every question wrong. And I was just looking at her like, what are you doing? But
she wanted to go to prom.
yeah, she wanted to go to prom. And I don't know why I didn't care. I was like, I'm going to go to a different prom. I've got a boyfriend. I'll go to his. So he'll skip mine.
What was your business or business plan? Do you remember?
I have no idea. I have no idea. It was one of those random things. Like we just did it once. It wasn't.
So you weren't hardcore Deca people. You just kind of, again, stumbled into it.
I just kind of stumbled into it. It was something I was kind of good at, and like I said, it was a senior year. It was hey, why don't you give this a shot? And it worked. But I think it had more to do with communications, really.
You
just
like doing the presentation and kind of being on stage.
Yeah, being on stage, being able to talk to people and make them see, your vision and communicate your ideas. And I think that can be really hard for high schoolers.
Oh, absolutely.
Sometimes, yeah.
Well, part of it is confidence. And if you don't have the confidence to communicate the message, you're not going to be very good at it.
No.
So you went to Florida State. How did you choose Florida State from not Lawrenceburg anymore, Franklin, Tennessee?
Yeah. Again, I was being pushed to go to theater schools, and they had a good theater program there.
I didn't realize that, but I think Burt Reynolds was a big benefactor of that theater school.
He was. And the other lady that went there is Ann Reinking. I think she came actually to visit once while I was there. I did not get to see her, unfortunately, but she was the big Bob Fosse dancer.
Yeah.
Of course, I knew her from Annie.
Was she Annie?
She was not Annie. She was Grace Farrell.
I don't even know who Grace Farrell is.
She was the one that We've Got Annie song. Yeah.
So you go to be a theater major. Is that what you thought it would be?
I had a lot of fun in it. I learned a lot. No, it wasn't really. I knew I started working in the ticket office there, and I loved it. That business side of arts was really starting to call to me a little bit more. And I enjoyed learning things like the lighting, the woodworking classes of all things. I had a good time in. I had fun in the speech classes and the performance classes as well. But I knew there was a master's program there that was theater management. And so I had to talk to, an advisor, and they said, you can't do that here until you're getting a master's degree. There's not an undergraduate program in that. You just need to go do something different. Go be a business major. And so I decided that summer when I went home, I was like, why am I paying out-of-state tuition to be a business major? If that's what I'm going to be to do this, why am I not here in a state school paying reasonable tuition, as reasonable as college tuition is, and and doing like a theater minor, which I think I'd taken almost all theater classes my freshman year. So I already had that almost under my belt, and just come home. And so it was like a week before I was supposed to go back to school. And I looked at my mom and I said, I'm not going back.
Oh, wow.
We still lived in Franklin at the time. Murfreesboro was right down the road. They had a great mass communication school.
Oh, MTSU's got a great school.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so I thought, I'll switch to broadcasting. I don't know why that's not business, and that's certainly not theater management, but that was the cool thing to do at MTSU at the time. And it seemed very attractive. And I was like, it's kind of like acting. It's kind of not. It's maybe a mix of the two. So we went over, we drove to Murfreesboro one day, applied, somehow got accepted within like 24 hours, and then got an apartment that weekend. Started school the next week.
Were your parents accepting of the fact that you didn't want to go back and were like, oh, yes, please come home?
Yes.
Or was it like, no, you go finish what you started?
They were thrilled.
Were they?
Thrilled. My mom, and dad, they both worked. And it was like when I looked at her and said, I'm not going back, she called into work like that minute and said, like, whatever we need to do. Like, we are going to Murfreesboro, we're going to fix this. They were ready for me to be home.
So you get into MTSU and you're a broadcasting major. And was that when the light bulb went off and said, this is what I want to do? Or was it like, this isn't what I thought it would be?
Yeah, it's still not what I thought it would be. I loved some of the classes. And I had done like, going back to high school, they have, little high schools usually have like the media, the news team that goes in. And I had done all of that in high school too. And so I liked that part of it. But I had to take this journalism class, and I got seated. He gave us assigned seats, and I was seated right at the very front of the class, and I fell asleep every single day. Every day. And I would come in with like my big venti coffee because I was like, I'm not falling asleep. That's like my nightmare. Like, I'm not a kind of person that wants to fall asleep in anybody's class. And I still, like, I have dreams about that to this day because I could not stay awake in that class. I was like, is this a teacher? Or is it me? It might just be me, that I'm not enjoying what I'm doing. And so, but this was a guy that I was going to have to take every single year.
Yeah.
You have to take those journalism classes. And I was like, maybe I do need to go into business. So I went into marketing after that.
When you signed up originally for broadcasting, what did you imagine yourself doing with that degree?
Oh, I wanted to be like on the Today Show.
So
I wanted to be Savannah Guthrie. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When you realized it wasn't going to be what you thought it would be, what did you do? You said you changed majors again?
Yeah, I did. And I did marketing, just a good old business degree, which I'm going to be honest, I was a little bit disappointed in myself. But I was working the whole time. I was in banking.
What kind of jobs were you doing?
At the time, I was just a bank teller.
Yeah.
Yeah, just a bank teller. And I loved it. It was great. I could pick up shifts on the weekends. I, had money to buy the things I wanted to do. And so again, it just gets back into that business. But I kind of thought with marketing, I would do like advertising work more is kind of what still something in media.
Right.
But then, as I went through college and I kept working in the bank, pretty soon when you graduate from college, you have this wealth of experience in a field, and it's really easy to get a job in that field.
Yep.
That pays a little better than starting over at the bottom. And I knew I wanted to go on and get my master's degree, and I could work full-time at the bank and go to school while I was doing that, and had moved into customer service. So I'd taken a little bit of a step up, and I just kind of kept following that career path, which I knew I didn't necessarily want to do long-term, but it was filling a need.
Was that Union Planners?
It was Union Planners, yeah.
Which I'm trying to think who they merged with, but there's something else.
Regions.
Was it Regions?
It was Regions. Mm-hmm.
So, and I think you're probably like a lot of college kids at that point. You tried a couple of different things, or hadn't really found out what you wanted. You've decided to major in marketing, but you've got all this experience being in banking. Did you at that time imagine yourself in banking?
No. And in fact, when I graduated with my master's, and we decided, my husband and I, well, he was my boyfriend then, but husband now, when we decided to move to Chattanooga, I thought, this is my chance to do something different. Mm-hmm. I'm getting out of Nashville. I've got my master's degree, and, whole new city, whole new job market, do something different. And the only thing I could get an interview for was banking jobs. And so it's like, well, I guess I'll just keep on doing banking.
Well, and you bring up an interesting point, because I think there's a lot of people like you that yes, I've been doing this and I'm good at it. I don't particularly have a passion for it. Yeah. I'd really like to be doing this, but it's so hard to break in if you've got all that experience on another end. At the end of the day, you got to pay bills.
You do. You do have to pay bills. And my husband was still in school at the time. He had graduated from MTSU with an aerospace degree. He wanted to be a pilot. Of course, 9/11 had kind of happened during that time, and it kind of put a damper on his career path, shall we say. And he decided to go to mechanical engineering school at UTC. And so really, I was working. He was going to school full time. We just bought our first home. It was not the time for me to say, well, I'm going to go start over somewhere.
Yeah.
And I did enjoy banking, because you do get the people, you're constantly interacting with people. There is that finance side. There is that marketing side. There was a lot of networking I was getting to do with the Chamber of Commerce. I was getting to do a lot of volunteer work. Banks are so great about supporting the community. And one of the places that I did volunteer for was the museum. Museum Center at 5 Points is what we called it then. We've added cultural to our name now. But I would go and spend a lot of time helping plan fundraisers and parties and things to further their mission.
Well, and I'm glad you bring that up, because here you are, you're a theater major, and all of a sudden you're in banking, but you found a way to make it interesting for yourself with all those things. I want to go back to moving to Chattanooga in 2000. Was it 2005?
2005, yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you moved from Franklin. Were you familiar with Chattanooga at that point, or did you I'm assuming you came for your husband to go to school, but what was the impression of that at that time of moving here?
Yeah, so my main perception of Chattanooga was from when I was a little girl living in Lawrenceburg. We would occasionally drive to Chattanooga to shop at the outlets, which are now Warehouse Row, but they weren't then. And I remember it being, like everybody says, dank and dirty, and the drive over was not great because we had to drive over Monteagle Mountain, and the roads weren't what they were now.
No, they only had that one side open, and there was a squeeze through there.
Yeah. So it was like a scary drive over. I remember my mom hated it, and then we got there and we shop and we drove back home. And I just remember Chattanooga not being great. I had a roommate that lived in Chattanooga in college, and we came to visit a few times. I was like, wow, well, this place is a lot different now. Hamilton Place was open, and the aquarium was there, and there was just a lot more to do. To me, it looked like a smaller Nashville, a place that could be fun to kind of create your own new life outside of what you've been living. It just I don't know. It seemed like a new opportunity to me. And 2005 was an interesting year for my family. Murray, that my parents worked for, went out of business that year. My sister and I had both graduated from our master's programs. She graduated from Vanderbilt with a family nurse practitioner's dual enrollment program and midwife. She was moving, and she got engaged. I got engaged within a couple months of each other. My poor parents.
Oh, wow.
I'm sure that they thought when they had twins that not everything would happen at the same time, but it kind of did.
You proved them wrong.
Yeah, we proved them wrong. She was trying to buy her first home. I was trying to buy my first home. My parents were moving. They were both jobless for a little while because Murray had completely closed. So they ended up in Morristown, Tennessee. My dad had gotten a job with Tough Torque there. So it was kind of like the first person who gets a job. That's where we're going. Yeah. And so they moved to Morristown. And so we always said we were going to make T-shirts that just said, I survived 2005. So when we moved to Chattanooga, I think it was more just like, it was just something new. Yeah. It was something new for Stuart, starting engineering school. It was something new for me, moving to a new community. I had hoped it would mean a new career path, but that's okay. We had stability, and that was great.
Yeah. And you eventually end up moving to Cleveland because you got family ties to Cleveland. At least your husband does, right?
Yeah. His family has been there forever. Of course, they started a company. It was Dixie Foundry, which turned into Tennessee Stoveworks, which ended up being Magic Chef eventually. And then, of course, it was Maytag, and now it's Whirlpool, and we don't have any connections with that anymore. But his family had very strong ties there. And, that's where I ended up. My first job after we moved to Chattanooga was actually in Cleveland. I was working at the First Tennessee main office as a loan officer. It was something a little bit different than what I had done before, and it was just loans. I had done loans, but I had never just been singularly focused on loans. And I remember going in and sitting down at my desk. Cleveland was a little bit different than Franklin. They kind of still had that old school banking mentality. And I was like, what am I supposed to do with myself?
Well, explain that a little bit, the old school banking mentality.
So I really felt like at the time I had gone from Franklin, it was very sales oriented. You had goals, and it was like there were expectations, and it was kind of pushy. When I moved to Cleveland and I was working in that loan officer position, there was not a lot of, I'm going to say, I don't even remember having a goal. I was like literally just sitting in my office waiting for people to come tell me they needed me.
Wow.
Yeah, it was bizarre. I looked at the guy that he was also a loan officer, and I was like, why are we both even doing this job? And I said, what am I supposed to be doing with myself? And he was like, oh, you just wait. And I was like, what do you mean I just wait? I just wait. I was like, I'm really bored. I'm reading 3 newspapers a day. What do you mean I just wait? And it wasn't long after that Jim Williams, he was a community president at the time, came to me.
I remember him.
Hey, he said, what do you think about going into being a bank manager at a financial center? And I was like, yes, please.
Please help me.
Please get me out of here. And so they put me at a little branch called Keith Street, which is now a pharmacy on the corner of Keith Street and Inman. It was kind of right downtown, but on the outskirts of it. It was the worst performing branch in the entire region. The manager who had worked there for years and years and years had moved down the street to a different financial center, still with First Tennessee. And that was the thing about Cleveland. All the First Tennessee branches were off the same road. And so, customers just followed your favorite person wherever you went. Yeah. It didn't matter what branch you were at. So when she left, that branch just tanked, and they put me there, and I was like, oh my gosh, what have I gotten myself into? But after a while, when you get bored enough, I was like, I am no longer, like, they did start implementing sales goals and things. And I was like, I am no longer going to sit here and wait. So I did get out, and I started calling on people and making connections within the community. And really a lot of that work was done through volunteer service.
Well, and talk about that a little bit in terms of that self-motivation of, okay, I've got this title, I've got this responsibility. They're not giving me the total direction I need. What did you do for yourself that said, I'm going to get out and make sure this is a success?
Yeah. I just went and started knocking on doors. That was part of it. It was
Good
like, who are my
leather.
clients? Who can I call? How can I get to know them and start to build a relationship? There was also, like I said, the volunteer service, like the museum. The one great thing about museums or volunteering for any nonprofit is it does give you, if you are new to a community, a really great way to get connected with people and really build a relationship through finding a common cause or helping to fulfill a mission. I think it's a great way to get to know people. So that helped. I was also getting married that year at that time and working with a lot of vendors around town on my wedding. So I was getting to know them. There was a new community theater. Actually, it was a professional theater that they were trying to start up called Reclay Theater that I got to sit on the board of and help get all of that started in Cleveland. And they did pretty well for a couple years. And unfortunately, kind of dwindled out over time. But really, I picked up the phone and started calling people. Katrina had happened about that time. And there was an influx of people from that area that had moved to Cleveland. I got to know some of them. So that's kind of how it all started. And slowly but surely, more people started to come. Banking is so relationship driven. More people got to know me, and I really think it's all about having the right team in place too. We had to have the right tellers behind the row, and eventually, one thing, all those seeds that you plant, they eventually come back to you. I made friends with some guys that owned a used car lot, and they were constantly needing new business. Some people, in real estate that needed financing for homes that they were selling, things of that nature. And so after a while, we started doing better. And the person that was managing the main office retired. And they came to me and they said, what do you think about going to the main office? And I was like, well, yes, that would be a lot easier than here. And I managed two banks then. Yeah. It was the main office and it was a little branch on Church Street, which is no longer there anymore. But, the lady that was there, she'd been there for a long, long time and was a very high-performing branch. But there was a system and a way to track your sales that just hadn't been done. So I feel bad taking any kind of credit for turning that one around because it really wasn't me. It was just a matter of
Putting the system in.
It was just, putting the data in the system the right way and making sure that, you were getting credit for the work that your team was doing. But one thing I did there was this little branch in downtown Cleveland, which is now Pinnacle Bank. It's where Pinnacle Bank is. They had just a tiny little staff there, and they kind of felt like, they weren't necessarily included. It was almost like they felt like the redheaded stepchild. And I said, no, I'm going to work out of this office sometimes in downtown Cleveland, and we're going to take these two teams and we're going to make them one team. And everybody needs to, we'll flip flop sometimes. Sometimes you'll, spend a month working at this branch, spend a month working at the other branch. Well, they both ended up doing better as a result of that. And in that little branch, it was still tiny branch, small revenues, but it did perform better than it had in years and years and years. And I was so proud of them and that.
I'm just curious, how do you go from this love of theater in high school, and when you're doing Our Town and you're playing Emily and you're thinking, banking, I want to get into banking. What did you take from that passion, that love for theater that helps you in the business world?
I'm going to say, never let them see you shake. You know what I mean? In a way, we're on stage all the time, right? Yeah. Every time you talk to a client, every time I have to now, stand up in front of a group of people and make a speech about why somebody should give me money to help us fund a stage or a new program at the museum. You're really playing a role in my head, is I guess how I kind of pictured that. Yeah. Really, I'm kind of shy. Like, I'd be really happy just to sit at home and, I don't know, cook dinner, watch a movie, and be quiet. But you can't always be that person. Sometimes you do have to take on.
And people who know me know I make this argument probably too much, is that communication is just such a critical skill, no matter what you're doing. It used to frustrate me with interviewing people who didn't have good communication skills. I always wondered how they ever got a job if you can't tell me what you're good at.
Yeah.
In a way that I understand it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And so I think, what theater helped me do and what I took from it into my professional career was that feeling of being uncomfortable and doing it anyways. Yeah. And that is something, as somebody who, I did have stage fright, I can remember being terrified before I stepped out on that stage, but you do it anyways.
How'd you get over that?
You just do it. You just have to keep on doing it. And it does get easier. Yeah. I think it does get easier. Now, there are days that are not as easy as others, but it does get easier.
Well, and the you just got to do it thing is so important because, and I find myself today procrastinating on things that, boy, if I just addressed that, it would be off my plate and I wouldn't be thinking about it anymore.
Right. I know. And I deal with that a lot. I'm going to say now where, and I may be jumping ahead a little bit, but where
let's talk about the culture center and museum.
Yeah. So, gosh, I don't even know where to start with that.
How did you get involved? So you're working at the bank, and I'm going to assume you're probably serving on different community boards, and this one comes up?
Yeah, it's funny. The board of the museum actually came up years after. I actually left my career in the bank and stayed home for 10 years. After the Cleveland main office, I was transferred to a branch called North 58 in Chattanooga. Spent some time there, got real involved with the chamber and some different organizations in Chattanooga, and then was given the opportunity to transfer back to Cleveland after the birth of my first child, which of course I took immediately. I really wanted to be close to home, and was pregnant with my second child. That branch ended up closing while I was on maternity leave, and then I was going to have to start commuting again. And Stu was working for Watts Bar Nuclear at the time, so he was going in one direction. I was going to have to go in another. Our kids were going to be in the middle. And we were like, we just don't want to do this anymore. So I decided to stay home. And I had a wonderful, would not trade that experience for anything in the whole wide world. 10 amazing years staying at home with my children. And really, I stayed involved through nonprofit service. I was really involved with Junior Auxiliary of Cleveland. I was really involved with the parent-teacher organizations at the girls' schools. We would do I do small things for the museum occasionally, but I kind of, when your kids are little, they really do take a whole lot of your attention. They take a whole lot of your attention all the time. But
even when they're older,
they still take a lot of attention. But I had kind of gotten a little detached from the museum. Not that I wasn't volunteering, but it was more like we would go see exhibits, or the kids would go to summer camps, or, I would attend a party or a gala, or I would plan an event for junior auxiliary and we would have it at the museum. When I'm going to say about the 2018 timeframe, well, really the entirety of its existence had struggled, and they had gone through several iterations of strategic plans and, community charrettes, and what are we going to do next, and how are we going to change things? And
I'm sorry to interrupt. When did the museum open?
In 1999.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was our 25th anniversary last year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Funny enough, in 2000 was the first time I was ever at the museum. And that's when one of those first times in Cleveland that I first met Stu. I have a picture of it in my office. We're sitting at a table at a gala that was held in honor of one of his cousins. And I can remember sitting there at the time just thinking, well, this is a great place, but never in my wildest dreams did I ever think that 25 years later I would be the executive director of this organization, ever.
Well, and I'm just going off of my memory. The museum established in, you said 99, but really is struggled too hard a word, struggled up through that time to be not relevant, but to financially viable and to attract people?
Yeah, I'm going to say, the first couple years, they were good. And I'm going to say there was some, like you said, financially viable. It cost a lot of money to run a museum. I think that is something that people do not understand. It is not just you create this static exhibit and there's never another penny that goes into it. We have a 19,000 square foot facility. It takes a lot to maintain that. Our electricity alone is like over $30,000 a year. And that is hard. That is hard for a nonprofit organization to keep up with, especially one that is also having to deal with debt. And unlike a lot of museums that are either part of their municipality or a part of a university or college system, or they're funded out of some, great endowment or bequests that was left. We were none of those things. It is a private 501c3 nonprofit corporation. We had a very meager endowment, and we're not part of a college or university. Like, you're just out there trying to make it happen on your own. And that is so difficult, especially in a small community.
So you get involved with the board in 2018, it's struggling, and everyone knows a couple of years later, here hits COVID. So what are all the challenges that presents?
A lot. The funny thing about when I came on in 2018 is there was kind of this new energy and there was this new direction. And I do feel like the museum was on a good path. But they had struggled to keep up with capital. There was a lot of deferred maintenance that needed to be done. We, at the time in 2018, there were we only had, I think, 2 working HVAC units in the entire facility. The roof needed to be replaced. There were leaks everywhere. Our big cultural center, where we have a lot of our events and meetings, it had carpet and wallpaper on the walls, and the carpet was literally peeling up off the ground and the wallpaper was falling off the walls. And because there was no money to fix these things, the solution was we had a lovely donor who had given us enough draping, pipe and drape, to go around the whole room. So we just left the drape up all the time so you couldn't see the wallpaper falling off. So none of these things are great, but nobody could ever figure out how to get far enough ahead to start fixing things.
And how did you figure that out?
Well, COVID, actually. It's funny. Every cloud has a silver lining. What COVID did for us was really allow us the opportunity to really take a big step back. And we went from a staff, our staff was too big. There was a staff of almost 13, maybe 14 people that were working there. We cut it back. When I took over as executive director, it was me, a part-time events person, and a curator. So 2.5 people that were running the whole thing. So that immediately saves you a lot of money. Our former executive director, I really do think the reason that she retired when she did is because she knew that if she retired, it gave us like 2 more months that we could survive and pay some bills. We had a really, serious conversation. Me, my board vice president at the time was Hank Matheny. There's a guy named Bill Martin that's still involved today. Hank and Bill are still involved. Bill's a banker with Pinnacle. And we had a lot of conversation around, like, what do we do? We're in debt up to our eyeballs. We're not making any money. We can't make any money. Of course, the government came through with those PPP loans, which were amazing and really did allow us to continue to get through it. But a lot of what I did when I got in was just start cutting back. Like, what do we not need? Where are we? Like, stop the bleeding. Yeah. And once we stopped the bleeding, we decided to, okay, now we have to change the narrative. If, there was this person, former board member, that was always, the museum's going to go dark. When the museum is dark, what's going to happen? Just like, it's hard to turn an organization around when everyone, all of your investors believe you're going to fail. Yeah. And so we had to change that narrative immediately, which means we just had to start talking to a lot of people and saying, like, no, like, we've cut back. We're working on our efficiencies. We staged a little capital campaign, and at the time it was only like $15,000, which is funny to me because it felt enormous. Mm-hmm. And now it's like, oh, it's just $15,000. But we just wanted to do a few simple things to make our facility more rentable, because rental revenues are a huge way that we make money to meet our operational needs. So we replaced that carpet and the wallpaper, and we replaced some carpet in our conference room and got new chairs, laid new tile in our education room, and that was it. But it made a huge difference. When we came back, and I made a really great hire, I will say this, because, again, relationships, people are everything. There's a lovely lady named Tara Brown in Cleveland, and she called me one day and said, hey, I hear you need an events director. I think I'd like to give it a try. And I was like, yes, absolutely. She is just one of those people. Everyone in Cleveland knew her. She is a ray of sunshine, and it was one of those moments where it's like, Tara's on board. I know everything's going to be okay.
So you really had to not only get it in financial order, but you had to change the perception.
Yes. Yeah.
And not just probably with your investors, but with the public.
With the public. I mean, the museum was largely seen for the first 20 years before we really started working on this. And I've heard it so many times, a place for rich people to have parties. And I was like, that is not what we are. And that was the biggest thing. I thought I spent a lot of time thinking about, how do we give back to this community? How do we serve this community? And we already were in so many ways. Pre-COVID, we were seeing 10,000 students a year, which for Cleveland, that's a huge number for education programs. But nobody knew about it. Because everybody just saw us as, this is a place where everybody goes to have their fundraisers and their events and their weddings. We do 8 to 12 rotating exhibits a year, which is a lot for a museum to get through.
And what's the focus of those exhibits, or the focus of the museum?
We are a Smithsonian-affiliated regional history museum, arts and cultural center that tells the story of the Ocoee region. So we get into a little bit of everything. Yeah. It's a broad mission. Our permanent exhibit is focused on prehistory through the 1996 Ocoee Olympics, so it is pretty regional specific. Our rotating exhibit area, we do a little bit of everything, but we always try to have some kind of regional tie. And so that might be an art exhibit, or it might be a cultural exhibit, or it could be a very history-rich exhibit. Right now, it's 100 Years of Commerce. The Chamber of Commerce in Cleveland has it just celebrated their 100-year anniversary, so we were excited to partner with them and tell their story. And of course, I have to give them a big shout-out, because they also just gave us a great donation for our stage.
Isn't Mike a great guy?
Mike's a great guy. Yeah. And I blame, this is all his fault. I blame him for me being here and being on that board. Yeah. He chaired that committee where I went and said way too much stuff about all my ideas for what the museum could be.
See, he's a smart guy. Now, Cleveland and Chattanooga are, 30 miles apart?
Yes.
But sometimes culturally, they seem very much further apart. Why do you suppose that is?
I think Chattanooga is a lot more diverse, I would say. I think you've got a lot of people that have moved in from all over the place to Chattanooga to work here for, many companies.
Yeah.
I know, there are companies that are headquartered here that their business is not even here, and so I think you get that you get a lot of people that are moving in from other areas, and it changes the culture a little bit. In Cleveland, just down the road though, and that is happening in Cleveland a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, there are droves of people moving to Cleveland from all over the place. I do feel like it has kind of maintained this bubble.
Yeah. There's a great pride in Cleveland in terms of, we're not Chattanooga.
Yeah.
And I mean that in a complimentary way. It's a community pride.
It's that
identity.
Pride. It is. And I think Lee University has a lot to do with that.
Yeah, that's a great point.
There's and I don't know what the statistic is, but there are a large number of people that go to school at Lee University and they stay in Cleveland and they work in Cleveland and they raise their families in Cleveland. So I think that has a lot to do with it. And then you've got this really strong entrepreneurial, heritage in Cleveland, where you've had businesses like Magic Chef and Brown Stove and Hardwick Stove too. I don't want to leave them out. You've got M&M is headquartered there, which I think is so cool. And
you mentioned Lee University. There's a lot of students coming out there creating businesses that are doing really, really well.
They really are. Lee University is, I think it's such an asset to our community. Yeah. They've been great community partners for us. Then, of course, right now they're building their engineering school down there, so they're just adding a little bit more.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it really is a tremendous story of how this, when I first went to Cleveland, 30-something years ago, much different town than it is today.
It is. And it's growing, like I said, by leaps and bounds. Of course, we'll give Mayor Brooks and his team all the credit for the Inman Street. The road diet is what they called it.
Road diet?
The road diet. They took it from I don't know if it was 4 or 5 lanes. I think it was 4 lanes with the turning lane maybe, and they made it 2 lanes with a turning lane and widened the sidewalks, and it's really changed the face of Inman Street. And, just over the past year, we were closed. Inman Street was closed this time last year. Now it is reopened. There are new businesses that have come into those shops that are downtown. It's walkable. It's beautiful. And now my side of Inman Street, we're working on redeveloping it now as well. So hopefully we'll see some changes there.
Give your best pitch to anyone who has not been to the Museum and Culture Center at 5 Points.
Oh my gosh. I didn't have an elevator speech ready. I would say that there is something for everyone at the museum. And there truly is, whether it's art, whether it's history, whether it's culture, whether you're looking for a gift or just a good time or a way to connect with your community. We have something for everyone there. I'd say look at our calendar and it will prove that.
Before I get to the last question, I do want to remind our listeners who makes all this possible. So it's thank you to the Tennessee Valley Authority for sponsoring My Morning Cup. Follow TVA on social media to learn more about its multifaceted mission of service, and visit TVA.com/do-good-here to explore exciting TVA career opportunities. All right, here's the last question. Once you go back to that 25-year-old self, and what would you tell yourself is important for a happy life?
I would just say believe. Just believe. You can do anything you put your mind to, and not to let the worry and the doubt get in your way. I think that's what I would say.
And it kind of goes back to what you were talking about, stage fright. You just got to do it. You got to believe in yourself. Yeah. And why would you want to listen to people who don't believe in you?
Yeah. I know, exactly. Why would you want to listen to those people? And I think that is something that as we've turned the museum around, as we've seen the success that we've had, and especially as we are moving forward with this capital campaign and actual construction project now to build a stage in our courtyard.
Well, talk about that a little bit. What are y'all doing?
Yeah, so, we talked about COVID, we talked about the struggle of the museum, but I didn't get to say that we fixed all of these issues. And we've seen enormous change and enormous growth over the past 5 years. And so much of that, again, goes back to just believing that we could do this, that there are people that believed in the asset that we provided. Our current project, after we've paid off our debt and we've replaced the roof and we've replaced all the HVAC units and we've gotten our liquor licensing and we've made a commercial kitchen now, and we've introduced new programs, and people are coming back and we're donation based. So we are truly becoming that place that is for the entire community, where everybody can find something that they love. Now we have decided, as a result of a strategic plan that we did a couple years ago, to build a stage in our courtyard, or we're calling it an outdoor entertainment venue, because it's more than just a stage. We're adding artificial turf. We're fencing in the area. We're adding additional lighting. And so we really see this as the next step for us to become more of a arts and entertainment hub for downtown Cleveland. I picture it being, I don't know if you've ever been to like the golf or the hangout at the beach. And so you can go there and you can listen to a band, and your kids can play in the yard, and maybe we'll have some nice chairs on our patio, and you can kind of watch it all happen. At the same time, that's where like our Whispering Giants Intertribal Native Festival will happen, and having that kind of surfacing and the stage will make all of those logistics so much easier. We already have multiple concerts throughout the year, but we hope to bring really great, high quality live music to Cleveland. We've been partnering with some amazing guys called the Undertakers in Cleveland to get some great bluegrass music. So that's been a great experience. But throughout this whole process, you have the people, and I have to give a huge shout out to Hank Matheny, who owns Haskell Interiors, who has sat on my board and has really walked this path with me every step of the way. I call him my Pollyanna, because he's always the one saying it's going to be okay. Yeah. We've got this. It's not that bad. Just think about it this way, and you have to have those people that believe in you, that believe in your mission, that believe that that arts and culture and community continuing to share that heritage that makes Cleveland, like you said, helps us maintain our bubble a little bit, helps us maintain our identity. That all comes from museums and cultural centers. So you have to have those people that believe in you louder than the doubt, because the doubt is there. And that is something that we have to deal with every day. Unfortunately, it never goes away, but you have to just ignore it. Learn to ignore it.
Well, and to your point, no one's going to believe in you until you believe in yourself.
Right. And
it sounds like you've got the belief in the museum and the cultural center, and everyone's believing. Everyone's believing,
and it's great. And I believe in it. When I was on the board, what I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt, and I think it goes back to, again, my first experience at the museum, when I said, oh, this place isn't so bad. This isn't just some small town. Like I was looking at moving to Cleveland from Franklin, Tennessee, and that was 2000 time frame. Yeah. This place can be more than what it is, and the museum was that hope to me. And then when I was pregnant with my daughter Sophie, and I was watching some friends of ours give a piano and viola concert at the museum, and Sophie, I was heavily pregnant. I think I had her the next week, but she was just like rolling around and kicking in my belly. Everybody could see it. It was crazy, and now she plays violin, which I have to wonder, was that did that experience, that prenatal experience there at that museum, somehow impact her and grow this lifelong hobby for her? Exhibits, summer camps. My kids were at a summer camp there when they happened to have a stove exhibit, and my kids knew nothing about, Stu's family, or the legacy that is there. And they came home and they said, Mommy, they had this really neat experience or exhibit. There was all these little stoves, and they had these little pots and pans, and our names were on everything. And Stu and I just kind of looked at each other. We said, maybe we need to go back and talk a little bit about family history a little bit. But when the time came during COVID and things were at their worst, what I knew beyond a shadow of doubt was it didn't matter if I had ever run a museum before, or even if I knew what I was doing, that museum was not going to fail. It was not.
That's that drive. Mm-hmm. Well, your career's to a great extent been full circle. You started on the stage, got into business and banking, and you're kind of back on the stage now.
In a sense, yes.
Well, I'm so glad you came in today, Lucy. It's great to talk to you.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I've really enjoyed it.
Thanks for listening to My Morning Cup, a podcast by Costa Media Advisors. If you liked this episode, please share it with a friend. I release a new episode each week, so be sure to subscribe on Spotify, Apple, Google, or wherever you listen to podcasts.